Okay, lymphatic system is basically the one that we already talked about a little bit, that lymphatic system is a system that helps maintaining the blood volume. That's the first thing in mind when you're studying lymphatic system, meaning when a cardiovascular system send the blood, which carry all the nutrients, including oxygen, to all the cells in the body. So it comes, all the oxygen and other nutrients that comes out from the blood vessel to the tissue fluid area. In that tissue fluid area, like I'm using the word tissue fluid intentionally so that you understand it better. It's actually called interstitial fluid, or in other words, extracellular fluid. So when the blood vessels deliver those nutrients and including oxygen into that area, the cell can get it. Now, when the liquid along with the water, when it comes out from the blood vessel, because blood capillaries are single wall thick organ, so they have a lot of porosity. The big things like the protein and the blood cells, they can't come out. They are still in the blood vessels. So those molecules that comes out in the extracellular fluid or the interstitial area then wants to go back in again. Once the pressure equalizes, now the pressure goes down in the blood vessel, so they want to get back. So that time, blood carry back carbon dioxide and all other waste products that they want to carry with them. So they take it back into the vein. In this process, what happened is, when scientists studied, they found out that approximately like more than half of your blood, like 3.6 liters of blood, fluid, not blood, take it back. So more than like 3.6 liters of fluid remains back in the extracellular area. So they have to now come back to the blood. So how they do it, the lymphatic system, they do it. So the lymphatic system has the lymphatic vessels, which is basically vein-like vessels throughout your body. So throughout your body like this. So these vessels, what they do, they bring that extra fluid that blood did not or couldn't return it to the blood vessels, where before the blood entering the right atrium. Remember, from the body, blood will enter to the right atrium through superior vena cava. So right before they enter in the subclavian vein, those lymphatic vessels drain them. So they bring it from the lower part of the body, they bring it from the upper part of the body, they bring it from the arm, and they dump everything into that veins before that goes into the cardiovascular system back again. So they maintain by doing this, they are maintaining the blood volume. They're maintaining the blood volume. But when scientists studied that in detail, they figured it out. It's not only that. It's not only that. It's just not they're getting back the liquid. While they're doing it, while they're taking that liquid from the, I'm going to use the word picking up. So they're picking up the liquid from the extracellular fluid and bringing it back to the heart. They're actually checking that liquid for any kind of problem, meaning any kind of they're checking the liquid for any type of damaging items or damaging cells for the body, like pathogens, like bacteria, virus, fungus, or cancerous cell, or a defective cell. So they're checking on them, and if they find them, they kill them. If they find them, they destroy them. So basically, in other words, they're protecting your body, because bacteria, virus, they can be in the body. They can get in. If they get into your body, that is how we kill them. So now their primary function become the production, maintenance, and distribution of those different cells. We call them lymphocytes. So what lymphatic system consists of? Lymphatic system consists of that fluid called lymph. That fluid means that extra fluid, they're getting it back. We call lymph. Give me 1 second. Oh my God. Okay, so the lymphatic system, what they consist of? They consist of lymph, which is that fluid. Now pay attention to this one. Lymph is very similar as blood plasma, because blood plasma is the one that comes out. The blood plasma is the one, almost everything in the blood plasma comes out, except for the large molecules, such as protein, so they cannot come out. So lymph and blood plasma is very similar according to their composition. Lymph has a little bit less protein, because lymph has protein, those are available in the interstitial area, but blood plasma has a protein that remains in the blood, like albumin, globulin, fibrinogen, those. So they don't come out that in the lymph. So apart from that, it's very similar composition. So now lymph is getting into the vessels. Those vessels are called lymphatic vessels. They are like vein-like structure. A little bit, lymphatic capillaries is slightly wider compared to the blood capillaries, so that molecules can get in easily. And then apart from this, we have some lymphoid tissues and organs throughout the bodies. We call lymphoid tissues because they are a bunch of cells. They do not have a specific structure, so we cannot call them organ. And we also do have some organs throughout the body, in the body. And then we have lymphocytes and other cells that support the function of the lymphocytes. So lymph is the fluid. Lymphatic vessel is the pipeline that is carrying the fluid, returning it back. Lymphoid tissues and organs, their main job is to production, maintenance, and distribution of the lymphocytes. And lymphocytes are the cells that killing those bad things like pathogens in the body. So that's basically, in short, the function of the lymphatic system and what lymphatic system is. There is one additional feature, which is not mentioned here in the slide, that there are special lymphatic vessels. There are special lymphatic vessels in the digestive system also. Those special lymphatic vessels in the digestive system, small intestine, what they do, they help absorbing lipid molecules. Now, we learn in the digestive system that carbohydrates breaks down to monosaccharide, absorbed in the blood capillary. Protein breaks down to amino acid, absorbed in the blood capillary. But lipid, when they break down, they are mostly hydrophobic. There are some fatty acid, apart from that, they are mostly hydrophobic, meaning they do not like water. And if they don't like water, they can't really go through through the cells into the capillary. So they don't like water. So what they do, then what body does, body creates a lipid protein complex. So basically they put the protein they put the lipid within a protein envelope. It's like you're mailing a greeting card to somebody. They have no value of the envelope, because envelope is just carrying them, but the greeting card is inside the envelope. So you want to send that greeting card to somebody with the envelope as a safety, so that greeting card can reach properly. Same thing here. The lipid is inside. The proteins are like protein creates a cage that goes around like an envelope. So they create a lipid protein complex, just for understanding purpose. So that lipid protein complex is called chylomicrons. You can find this in the digestive system chapter. The word is chylomicrons. So those chylomicrons, now it's a complex, so it's big molecules, it's large, so they cannot get into the blood capillary that easily. They cannot get into the blood capillary. They get into those lymphatic capillary. Those lymphatic capillary, because remember, lymphatic capillary is ultimately going to come back into the blood circulation anyway. So we are fulfilling the purpose of that food back into the blood anyway. The only thing they can't get into the blood capillary, they get into the lymphatic capillary. Why? Because lymphatic capillaries are slightly wider. Lymphatic capillary is slightly wider than blood capillary. When you compare the blood capillary side by side, lymphatic capillaries are a little bit wider than blood capillary. So for those chylomicrons, being a little bit large molecule, it's easy to get into the lymphatic capillary, because eventually they're going to be in the large vein, or large vein. In the large vein means the blood system anyway. So that's one additional feature of lymphatic system, that they help absorbing lipid molecules in small intestine, apart from maintaining blood volume and defend your body. So now the first thing we are going to study is like how they return the blood, because there is a very interesting way when they return the lymph. So how they return the lymph. So they are very interesting way how they return the lymph to the blood system. So I'm going to show you a picture first. This is how they return. This is how they return. So the entire lower part, normally our body is like, symmetrical, bilateral, normally. But here, they're not doing left-right job. The entire lower part, they collect their lymph through those vein-like structure, lymphatic vessels, right somewhere here. There is a sac right there. That sac right over here in the in the bottom, like in the underneath the diaphragm, is called cisterna chyli, right there. That's a sac. That sac is called cisterna chyli. Cistern means chamber. So they everything that comes from the bottom of the body, from the left side and the right side both, they stored right over here, cisterna chyli, and then this thoracic duct take it on the top. In the meantime, everything collect from the head and the left side. So left side of your body, from the upper part of your body, left side of your head and the left side of the arm, they together dump it in the left side. So the drainage of thoracic duct along with the left side, they dump it on the left side. The right side of your lymphatic system only take care of the upper right side. So this picture is very helpful to understand. So the lower side, there are two collecting ducts, the right and the thoracic duct. The right side, they receive lymph only from the right arm, right side of the head, and right side of the thorax, that emptied into the right subclavian vein. So right, only the upper part goes on the right side, but the entire lower part, as well as the left side of the upper side, that goes into the left subclavian vein. Very important to know. So these are the little difference between two dumping methods, because remember, our goal is to empty those lymph into the subclavian vein, which then march together to make superior vena cava that takes it to the heart. So this is how they collect the lymph throughout the body. So one more time, the entire lower part, along with your left side, that goes on the left side. Upper right side, meaning upper right head, right neck, right arm, right thorax, goes onto the right side. So that's lymphatic vessels delivery, and their capillary is slightly wider than the blood capillary. And because of that reason, lipid molecules can get easily absorbed into that system. Okay. Then comes lymphocytes or lymphatic cells. Now, there are three very important lymphatic cells. One is called natural killer cells, or NK cells. And if you know the name, you know the answer right there. They kill the natural killer cells, meaning they kill or attack and destroy bacteria, virus, anything that attack your body. So they always, this is the terminology we are going to learn even a little bit later, called immunological surveillance or immune surveillance, meaning they're roaming, follow the word, they're roaming around your body, and keep an eye. So keeping an eye, anything they see or they cannot recognize them, and they treat them as foreign and they attack them. Okay. T lymphocyte, B lymphocyte. This is the two different type of lymphocyte based on how they formed in the body, how they born and mature in the body. Now pay attention to this. All these cells, natural killer cells, T lymphocyte, B lymphocyte, all three of them, when they're born in the bone marrow. All three of them, when they're born in the bone marrow. Natural killer cells and a B lymphocyte, they stays in the bone marrow and get mature. That's why it's called bone marrow derived cells, B cells. The T cells, they travel to thymus, and they mature in the thymus. Thymus is a gland right on top of the heart. It's an endocrine gland because they release a lot of hormones called thymic hormone, and those hormones helps them maturing these T lymphocyte. That's why it's called thymus dependent cells or thymus derived cells. So T for T lymphocyte, that T for thymus, B lymphocyte, and B for bone marrow. But one more time, all of them, they're born in the bone marrow. So when they're born in the bone marrow. So from hemocytoblast, we're going back in the blood chapter, from hemocytoblast, there are two types of stem cells that we produce, a lymphoid stem cell and myeloid stem cell. Myeloid stem cell produce RBC and some other WBC that we know already. We are now focusing on a lymphoid stem cell. So lymphoid stem cell, when they destined to make T cells, lymphoid stem cells, when they're destined to make T cells, they travel. So they migrate to the thymus, where they produce, thymus gland, they produce thymic hormones, and they help maturing the production of the T cells, and they come back to the circulation. But the other two cells, B cells and natural killer cells, they grow up there. So as if somebody born, like let's say three brother and sister, they're born in Suffolk County here, or Nassau County, or let's say New York, they're born in New York. And one of them, they migrate to California and grow up there. So one of them migrate to California and they grow up there. So that's exactly the situation. So all of them born in bone marrow, and two of them mature in bone marrow before coming to the circulation. Then one migrated to thymus, and then their maturity happened there, and then they come into the circulation. Ultimately, all three of them in the circulation. Natural killer cells, they are responsible for immunological surveillance. They're roaming around the body. If they see somebody foreign, they identify them and then they kill them. At least try to kill them. And if they're not successful, then you're in. If they are not successful, then you're in trouble. And B cells, they're antibody-mediated response. They initiate antibody-mediated response in the body, and T cells, they initiate cell-mediated response in the body. Difference between cell-mediated and antibody-mediated response, we are going to learn later on. So these are lymphocytes. Now we are going to know about lymphoid tissues and organs. So lymphoid tissue is basically a cluster of cells. That's why we call tissues. Because when you call cluster of cells, when you call organ, they have to have a specific structure. They have to have a particular structure. That's when we call them organ. Otherwise, they're just tissue. So one very important lymphoid tissue is tonsils. Tonsils in your pharynx region. We have 5 of them, okay, because they're a cluster of cells. So we have 5 of them. 5 tonsils, left and right palatine tonsils. So that's a pair of palatine tonsils, a pair of lingual tonsils, and a single pharyngeal tonsils. That's also called adenocytes. So these are 5 tonsils that are also lymphoid tissues. So what is their job? They're nothing but a packet full of lymphocytes. So they're packet full of those cells we just discussed, like NK cells, T lymphocytes, and B lymphocytes. They're packet full, and then some other phagocytic cells who kill anything that they don't recognize. So if they see a defective cells in your body, if they see a cancer cell in your body, if they see a bacteria, if they see a virus, if they see any foreign cell, they're going to target them and they're going to attack them. That's the job of the tonsils. Similarly, apart from tonsils, there are some other lymphoid tissues around your body as well. They're normally found in all the tract, all the pipelines. For example, digestive tract, so it's from the mouth to pharynx, then esophagus, then stomach, small intestine, large intestine. So that's a tract. Respiratory tract, like mouth, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, that's a tract. Urinary tracts. So all this tract, they can deal with the outside world, meaning external material can go in. So to protect from any kind of infection, we have mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, or in short, we call MALT, because inner layer of the tract is called mucosa. So the digestive system, the innermost layer is mucosa, then submucosa, muscularis externa, then serosa. We learned that. So that's the mucosa layer. In that layer, we have a bunch of lymphoid tissue sitting there. So they attack anything they don't recognize when the molecule. So when you breathe in, they attack. When you eat, they attack. So there is a collection of those kind of lymphoid tissues in the digestive system, in the digestive tract. Particularly, they're very easily visible in a portion of the small intestine area. That portion is called ileum. So when you look at microscopic structure of a ileum region, so ileum mucosa, that area, ileum mucosa area, you will see that there's a cluster of lymphoid tissue sitting, like it's very easily visible. I don't have a slide here. Easily visible cluster. Those are called aggregated lymphoid nodules, or in short, ALN, or commonly known as Peyer's patches. So once you see under the microscope the Peyer's patches, you know that's ileum. That's ileum. So that's the easiest way to differentiate between duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Those are the three parts of the small intestine. The first part is duodenum, the second part is jejunum, the third part is ileum. So ileum is the easiest way to identify, is look for the Peyer's patches, the cluster of lymphoid tissues sitting on the mucosa layer so that they can protect your body. So next time when you take a look at the histology slide, meaning the microscopic slide of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, that is the best way to identify ileum. You just cannot miss it. Like as soon as you look into the microscope, boom, Peyer's patches. They're aggregated lymphoid nodules. So these are the tissues that we have. And then we have organs. We have a huge number of one tiny organ throughout the body. It's called lymph nodes. So lymph nodes, and then we have thymus, and then a spleen. These are the three sets. I'm telling three sets because there's thymus and spleen, that's a one each. But lymph nodes, you have multiple in the body. Lymph nodes are actually distributed intelligently in the body. They are basically distributed in almost every junction area. So if you look at the lymph node distribution, right here, there are some lymph nodes. Right in the groin area, lymph nodes. Right in the abdomen, there are some lymph nodes. Same thing, right here, right in the axillary area or armpit area, there are lots of lymph nodes. And right there, lots of lymph nodes. Like why they're distributed that way? This is important. Because when lymph is returning to the heart in the blood circulation, when the lymph is returning to the blood circulation, they must go through at least one lymph nodes. They must go through at least one lymph node. So they put strategically, why? Because anything they collect down here, when they're going upward direction, they will go through at least one of these. Or if they miss one of these, they can go through at least one of these. So the lymphatic system capillary designed in such a way, they're going through one of these. So when they return from here, they're going through here. When they return from here, they're going through here. So lymph nodes, what basically they are collection of lymphocytes and other phagocytic cells, meaning they are the defense mechanism. So I'll give an example to understand. It's like, there are some filtration unit we find to filter the water, because water sometimes have some impurities, and before we drink them, we want to make sure to get rid of those impurities. So there is one commonly, like, we attach with the faucet. We attach on the, let's say, kitchen faucet. We attach that a tiny filtration unit on the kitchen faucet. Now, when you turn on the water, water goes through that filter. Now we're assuming, because that's what the filter does, they absorb all the impurities, they let the pure water go. Lymph node is exactly like that filter. So when the water goes, like when the lymph goes to the lymph nodes, all the cells in the lymph nodes, they are immune system cells. They keep an eye on the fluid. If they see something foreign, if they see something cancerous, if they see something pathogen, they attack them. So the lymph that coming out from the lymph node, so-called free from the germs. So the lymph node, their job is they are packet full of those cells. They're keeping an eye on the lymphocyte. They're keeping an eye on the damaged cancerous cells so that they can get everything removed from the lymph. So that is how they're strategically put. That's why sometimes, just a side note, like if a person is suffering from very common cause, like let's say breast cancer, the doctor suspect there's a cancer right here. So what they do, they take fluid from the axillary lymph node. They take fluid from this lymph node. If they do not find any cancerous cell in the lymph nodes, that means the person is lucky, meaning the cancer is still here. So when the cancer is located right here, it can be easily treated. Okay, but if they find a cancerous cell in the lymph node, that means the cancer metastasized, meaning it moved in the body. Now they don't know where they land up. It could land up in the brain, it could land up in the abdomen, it could land up in any other organ in the body. So that's where the lymph node, they take the fluid from the lymph node just to try what happened there, to see like how much cancer is propagated in the body. So that's the function of the lymph node. Two anatomical feature, as I said, when the lymph coming into the lymph node and going out from the lymph node. So the one that coming in, we call them afferent lymphatics. One that going out, we call them efferent lymphatic. E for exit. You can remember that way. So there is normally, most cases there is one efferent, but multiple afferent. So a lymph can come in multiple side, and this inside the lymph nodes, we have the T cells, we have B cells, we have plasma cells. Plasma cells is a mature B cell, so we are going to learn that later on. So all these cells, those are immune system cells. They're keeping an eye on any kind of foreign cells or any kind of infections. Thymus, very interesting organ. It's right on top of the heart. It's huge when in the fetus stage. So in the fetus stage, it's big, and then being born, and then slowly, this is one of those organs, they don't grow as much. So eventually your body grows. So in other words, they kind of like shrink. They technically don't shrink, but they don't grow that much. So that's the easiest explanation why older age people do not have enough defense, because thymus is responsible for making the T cells, which is one of the primary player of the immune system. So T cells, it's called T cells because it's a thymus-driven cells, or thymus the cells that mature in thymus. Anatomically, how we recognize them, it's very similar looking as a thyroid gland. Thyroid gland is right up there, and thymus is below. It's similar look, but they are not obviously identical. They have totally two different jobs. They're two different endocrine organs. If you make a cross section of the thymus, when you look under the microscope, which is one anatomical feature, there's a whirl of cell exist. Like epithelial cells, they create a whirl, like like a hurricane. That kind of structure exists. We call that Hassel corpuscle. So by looking at under the microscope, looking at Hassel corpuscle, we can easily determine that that's a thymus. So in the lab, when you're looking at a slide like thymus, you will see this whirl of the epithelial cells. That's a feature of a thymus gland. Finally, the spleen. Spleen, the organ that is in the abdomen that is responsible for a lot of function, but it is responsible for housing a lot of WBC. Okay, so we learn white blood cell, and white blood cell, and what they do, they trigger the immune response. So these white blood cells, when their population is high, that area we call white pulp. But spleen also play a lot of role in RBC recycling. Now, if we go back to the blood chapter, we learned that RBC, when they're after like 100, 120 days, body want to recycle them, the macrophages, they absorb they eat the phagocyte, the RBC, and they break down the heme, and then they store the iron or they transport the iron to the bone marrow by those protein molecules. That's why this storage of iron happens in the spleen, and then they recycle the heme, meaning those macrophages, they take the heme, make it biliverdin, and then make it bilirubin, and then they transport it to the liver, where the liver can make the bile solutions. We learn those things. That's happened right there in the spleen. So removal of abnormal blood cells and other blood components, and of course, initiation of the specific immune response, because they have lots of T and B cells sitting in the spleen. So if they see anything wrong, they are going to trigger the immune response. That's lymphatic system. That's actually the lymphatic system. So lymphatic system, their main function is to maintain the blood volume, but now that become kind of like a secondary. So now my primary function is like maintenance, production, and the defense. So they maintain, produce, and lymphocytes, and they defend your body all the time. And also there is a special lymphatic vessels that helps absorbing the lipid in the digestive system. And then we have to study the lymphatic vessels, how they return. So the lower part and the left side return on the left side. The upper side with the thorax return on the right side. And then we need to know that so when they're coming out from the lower part, there's a chamber here called cisterna chyli, and then the thoracic duct bring it right over on the left side. And then we need to study about the lymphocytes, NK cell, T cells, B cells, how they form. So they form from the lymphoid, like hemocytoblast to lymphoid stem cell, give birth to all these cells, T, B, and NK, but T migrated to like the lymphoid stem cell, those who are destined to make T cells, they migrated to Thymus, and they mature there, come back to the circulation. B and NK cell mature in the bone marrow, come back to the circulation. Ultimately, all in the circulation. Natural killer cell responsible for immunological surveillance. So they're keeping an eye on the body. B cells, they're responsible for antibody-mediated defense. We have to learn that later on. And T cells, they're responsible for cell-mediated defense. And finally, the tissues and the organs. So when you study tissue, you need to know the MALT, mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, ALN, aggregated lymphoid nodules or Peyer's patches, tonsils, 5 of them, all their names. And then comes lymph nodes, which is acting like a filtration unit. And so afferent lymphatics goes in, multiple afferent lymphatics, normally one afferent comes out. So they're keeping an eye on the body, and they're strategically placed throughout the body. And then comes the thymus, which is helping maturing the T cells. That's their main function, because they're an endocrine gland. They release a lot of thymic hormone. And finally, the spleen, which have recycling the RBC, storing iron, and of course, immune response. So that's all together is the lymphatic system. The remaining part of this chapter is the dealing with an immune system, meaning how. So far we know that this is what it looks like. Then we're going to know like how it's defending, like how T cells, NK cells, and B cell is defending your body.